Cozy, whimsical fantasy. Can you see where I'm going with this? Gothic, fantasy romance, spooky, dark atmosphere, readathon rebellion. Hello, my name is Kathy and I like to read. Welcome back. So today's video is going to be my August reading wrap up, and I will say August, it wasn't the most successful of months, but let me just give you the stats. So in August I read 4 books. My average rating was 3.44 and my total pages was 1,741. We read a range of fantasy books. We read a young adult fantasy books. We read just a plain fantasy romance. We read a young adult fantasy romance. And then we also read a dark fantasy romance. So it's kind of a bit of a spectrum as to the fantasy romance scale, as different as it can be. I did also have a soft DNF, but we'll talk about that at the end. Starting off the month, I read Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson, and I rated this 3 stars. This is a cozy, whimsical fantasy. It is part of the Cosmere, but it's like a standalone, so it doesn't really link with Mistborn and Stormlight Archives and all of that, but it is part of the Cosmere. And this book follows Tress, who lives on this isolated island that's surrounded by these deadly spores. So nobody really ventures off the island, and Tress is friends with Charlie, and Charlie is a duke's son, though he claims not to be. And because Charlie is of high importance, his father sets him on a mission to go and find a wife. He tells Charlie to pack his bags and go and find a wife, but Tress is really upset by this, and so is Charlie, because they're friends. They're at that age where they could be more than friends. So Charlie says that he will sabotage any prospective wife and send proof that he's going to sabotage any matches. So he gets sent away to this different land and he sends back proof until one day he no longer sends any proof that he is keeping up this plan for Tress. When Charlie's father comes back and Charlie's not there, Tress is wondering why. Where is Charlie? And he has been taken hostage by a sorceress. And this sorceress is a big deal. She is big, bad and powerful. So everyone says that he's a lost cause, but Tress will not give up on Charlie. So Tress sets herself on a mission to go and find Charlie, and along the way she meets a whole cast of characters and the storyline develops, the plots thicken, and it goes from there. It is a cozy fantasy. I've never read anything by Brandon Sanderson, and the narrative is very similar to The Hobbit. It gives me really like The Hobbit vibes. I thought it was really funny, really quaint. You can see that I've tabbed it quite a lot because I think, do you know what? I feel like this is something like my mum would like. So maybe I'll recommend her to read it. The audiobook was really good. It had so many different narrators and it was really easy to distinguish the characters from each other. And it was a graphic audio, so I find I couldn't immersive read because the audiobook would skip like descriptives, but it was still really good. I actually need to go back and tab everything that I've missed when I was listening to the audiobook. So yeah, it was just a fun time. Overall, I'm realizing that cozy fantasies aren't particularly for me. I need something that's like higher stakes, but this was witty, it was comical, the narrative was really interesting, and it was really well written. It had a few twists in, but I was just really looking forward to dipping my toe into Brandon Sanderson. No, that sounds really weird. I was really looking forward to starting my Brando Sando journey with something a bit easier. So yeah, that was the first book that I read in August. So the next 3 books that I read are all in a reading vlog, which I will link down below. So I'll link it in case you want to see my live reaction. And so I think I've also done like my ratings and reviews. So this will be quite a succinct reading wrap up because I've already done all this before. So the next book I read is Arcana Academy by Elise Kova, and I rated this 2.75 stars. This is the one that I just class as just a fantasy romance. No bells, no whistles, no young adult, no dark, no nothing in between. Just fantasy romance. I'll tell you the plot and then I'll tell you my thoughts. In this world we have arcane magic, and the magic is linked to tarot cards and into different suits like cups, wands, coins, but not everybody is blessed with arcane magic. But those that are, they can ink, wield and read tarot cards. This story follows Clara, who is blessed with the arcane magic. However, she abuses it. She forges fake tarot cards and she gets caught and sent to prison. So while she's in prison, she gets visited by the second son of the king, Prince Kalis, and he needs her help, and he will agree to free her from the prison if she agrees to help him. But in order to get her out and to disguise her in society, because she has been publicly imprisoned, as her disguise, she is enrolled in Arcana Academy, which Kalis is the headmaster of, and his wife to be. So this book has got a bit of everything. It's got fake engagement, it's got an academy setting, it's got tarot magic, there's also some mystery elements, and then there's this big overarching plot that Kalis needs help with. And can you see where I'm going with this? I didn't really enjoy this book. I did debate DNFing it a few times, but this is a new release and I feel like I've learnt my lesson to not get caught up in new releases, but I wanted to read it, I wanted to enjoy it. I was listening to it on the audiobook and it was fine when I was reading it, but I had no urge to pick it back up. The magic system is really confusing. I've touched on this in my reading vlog, but it doesn't make sense. It's got aspects that make sense, like the minors and the majors, but the different suits and all the powers and how it all interacts with each other is really confusing. There's way too many storylines in this. I won't tell them all because one, you'll be here all day, and two, some of them are kind of like, I wouldn't say they're spoilery, but they're not on the blurb. And I feel like you get a lot of the storyline on the blurb anyway. It was very fast paced until it wasn't. It stopped, and I didn't believe the story. I didn't believe the friendships or relationships. I didn't care for them. It was fine, but it wasn't like, this book has been really hyped. This is quite a few book clubs and it just wasn't necessarily for me. It ended on a kind of cliffhanger that was expected and unexpected at the same time, I guess, but I don't think I'll be continuing this series. I'm kind of just not interested. There's a lot of other things that I'm more like really excited to pick up that I don't think this will be on my priority list. So yeah, this one just wasn't for me, sadly. However, I am interested to read more from Elise Cover because I don't think her writing style is necessarily bad. I just think this storyline just didn't really suit me. So that was a bit of a disappointment, sadly, and it took me ages to read. It took quite a few weeks of the month, so this book slowed me down, sadly. So that was the second book I read in August. Okay, so now we're getting to the good stuff. So the next book I read was These Infinite Threads by Tahira Mafi, and I rated this 4 stars. This is young adult fantasy romance, but it was so good. So because it's the second one in the series, I can't say too much. In this woven kingdom, we have Eliza, who is the long lost heir to the Jinn kingdom, and Jinn are this race of people. They're unlike humans. They have special abilities. I think they can go invisible. I think they've got super strength. And this race has kind of been lost to the world. They're in hiding. So they do exist, but they're kind of like feared by the humans. And Eliza is the long lost heir. And in this woven kingdom, there's an altercation in a crowd and she is spotted by the Tulanian Prince Cameron. And then the story goes from there. The first book was good. I enjoyed it. I think it was 3.75 stars. But the second book, I get it. I get the hype. I thought I was much more of a plot focused person and I didn't really like books that are character focused, but this is just a character study. This is no plot, just vibes, and the vibes were so good. I loved this. So it's multi-POV and we saw different sides to the characters that were already established in the first books. There's 3 main characters in this, I would say, and it was just really good. It was actually quite heartbreaking at one point. Again, this is in my reading vlog. I understand it. I get the hype now. I really wanted to kind of dive into the next book, but there's reasons why I didn't. But this book was just so easy to like dip into. It's not too complex that if you give it a bit of a break, you can just jump right back in, and it's probably good for when you're in a reading slump. And I think that's what Arcana Academy did to me. Put me in a bit of a slump and I needed something that wasn't loads of world building. It's not particularly long. And yeah, so I know I've not really said too much in this, but this is totally worth it. I've got the 3rd book to read on my physical TBR and I know the 4th book is coming out soon. However, I don't think it's coming out in paperback, so I will be waiting to read it. I don't want to get the hardback. Oh, and also the audiobook for this is fantastic. The narrator has got such a lovely, rich voice. It kind of really adds to like the Persian vibes, and I just think it's definitely worth a listen to if you can. Plus, she really helps out with the pronunciation because this is like Persian mythology and a lot of the words I would butcher if it wasn't for that audiobook narrator. So the final book I finished in August was The Poisoner by Ivy Ophelia. I rated this 4 stars. This was perfect. This was right book, right time. This is gothic, fantasy romance, spooky, dark atmosphere, and I just ate this up. I will also say this was another book that was just mostly no plot, just vibes. It was about 80% character development, and then at the end, the last 20%, we got some good plot development, which I'll go into later. So this book follows Alina, who is a botanist at heart. She owns an apothecary. She got it from her dad, but on the side, she also brews poisons and gives them to well-deserving victims, you know, the nasty men out there. And she goes to this party and she has an incident and she meets a really unsavory character and she sets her sight on him as he's going to be her next victim. However, it doesn't go to plan. And then you see Alina and the MMC interacting throughout this book. So this is a cool take on vampires and themes like that. It's set in like Victorian times, which I actually really enjoyed. I loved it. I also loved that you get illustrations in this book and it's like a nice indie floppy book. There was a bit of spicy scenes right at the start that I wasn't expecting, but overall it didn't really kick in until about 70% through. The ending was so good. As I said, the plot kind of developed mostly towards the last 20%, and I didn't realise this is going to be a series series going into it. I actually thought this was a standalone, and the way that it ended, I'm just so excited for the next book. I think it's coming out in October, so it means I don't have too long to wait. I just thought the vibes were just so good, perfect for this time of year, and I really enjoyed it. I think this is like solidifying that I am a big fan of like gothic spooky fantasy, and I think I prefer it when it's a bit darker, more new adult and darker, opposed to like YA. I think the relationship and the interaction between the FMC and the MMC is so interesting and intriguing, and you just want to keep turning the pages and read and see what they're going to do next, because it's also kind of baffling how they act. Like, they're both very interesting characters, and I just wanted to keep reading about them basically. So this really ended the month on a high. As you can see, I kind of had a mixed bag of some meh books and then 2 4-star reads in a row, and I really enjoyed them. So that was the last book that I read in August. Okay, so that is actually technically my reading wrap up done. However, there are a few more things that I wanted to mention. So I think another reason why I didn't manage to get loads read in August is that I did start the Book of Asriel. I got to 42% of the way through, and then I have soft DNF'd it. I don't know if it's a case of right book, wrong time. I've had a lot going on in terms of my exams, which I've done now, but at the time I was trying to read, it felt like the world was too complex, the chapters were too long, and it just wasn't what I needed right at that moment. And I thought, I'm going to end up hate reading this, so I'll soft DNF it and come back to it later, because I do think I'll enjoy it. It was just a lot for me at the moment. So that's an honourable mention to one of the books that I attempted to read in August. And I will say, September, we're already doing so much better, so can't wait for that reading wrap up. So speaking of my September reading wrap up, I wanted to talk about my September TBR, and I'm not gonna set one. September has already been manic, and I'm only on the first week. I've had exams, I go on holiday at the end of the month, so I kind of want to keep my reading as broad as possible, to mood read, pick up stuff on my Kindle, which might be more accessible to me when I'm busy or traveling and things like that. I will hopefully next week have put up an autumn TBR video, and that'll be the books that are on my radar that I'd like to read this season. But I'm not going to set myself a TBR and pull prompts, because sometimes I feel like there's a lot of pressure, even though there's not. I'm only putting the pressure on myself. So actually, speaking of, I don't think I did a roundup. So for my August TBR, we read 3 out of the 5. We attempted a 4th one, and a 5th one is nowhere in sight. But there's a reason for that. It's because it's a chunky book and I want to give myself time. That's my reason. So with that, I want to keep my September TBR open. So hopefully you'll be seeing that autumn TBR. There'll be books that you've already heard me talk about, like Brimstone and the sequel to The Poisoner, which is called The Arachnid. There's a few things on there that you might not know are coming out, and other things that I'm just keen to read. However, I did also want to mention that I'm hopefully, if I can get my act together, I'm hopefully going to be taking part in my first readathon, and that is the Readathon Rebellion, which is hosted by Mel Lenore Reads. I will link her video because she'll explain it a lot better, but essentially there's a whole storyline that she's created and a map, and it's so, I love it, the creativity it takes to do something like that. She's got bookmarks and merch, and if she wasn't in the States, I probably would have bought some, but I think that because I'm going on holiday, I can't quite justify it just yet. But anyway, it's essentially a reading challenge in September, and the basic storyline has 4 objectives, and I think that's all I'll be able to manage in September. But the basic storyline has 4 objectives. If you want to play the more advanced mode, you roll a dice and you get other objectives for other prompts. You also pick like a class and a character that you are, and anyway, she's explained it obviously so much better in her video, but I was keeping in mind some books that I'd like to read as part of those prompts, just to see if I could do a readathon for the first time ever. 4 books is already a lot to be mindful of in terms of being quite strict for me. I just thought that if I could intertwine them into my reading, then why not? It's fun. It's fun to take part in stuff like this. So let me get the prompts up and I will let you know what books I have had in mind for these, but these are open to changing. Sorry if I've moved slightly, I was just grabbing the books for the prompts. So the first objective is, it's going to take the very best to get the Silent Spectre out alive and to stay alive yourself. Gather a team that you trust to help you accomplish this mission. Make sure you choose wisely. Read a book that has 2 or more points of view. So for that prompt, I was going to pick All This Twisted Glory. As I said, I'm really looking forward to continuing this series. I think I might take this on holiday with me because it's kind of cute and aesthetic, so why not get some holiday pics with it? So again, this I'm guessing is just following on from the storyline. So this is something that I'm going to keep in mind for my September TBR for the Readathon Rebellion. And the next objective is, now that you have a team in place, it's time to make a plan. You know the Silent Spectre is in the hands of the ancestors, but you're not sure where she is currently being held. Send out some of your best hearts to be persuasive and gather information. Social media scroll. Read the first book you come across on your TBR on your social media of choice. I wish I'd recorded myself doing this when I first had this in mind, but you'll just have to trust that The Night on the Moth was the first thing that I saw. I feel like this is obvious because The Night on the Moth is everywhere and I've still not read this, so I didn't include this in my autumn TBR, but it does also give me autumn vibes, so I'm glad this came up opposed to any of my other books. Like, imagine if I got like Catabasis or something, that might have been a bit too much. But yeah, so this again is something I'm going to have in mind to read in September, and I might have already started it, and it might be in a vlog coming soon, but we'll see. The third book is, you know where she's being held. You now have reliable information on the layout of the dungeon. It's time to go after your leader. Break the Silent Spectre out and bring her home by any means necessary. Be careful, there may be additional challenges along the way. Read a book with an action word in the title. This one was a bit harder than I was expecting, and I just kind of mostly looked at the books that I'd put on my autumn TBR, and I think A Sorceress Comes to Call was one of the only options, because I guess call's an action word, right? It must be. And again, I like that this was a short book, so I like the idea of keeping this in mind for September in particular. Hopefully it's like spooky gothic vibes and it suits the season. This will be the next book that I'll keep in mind to read in September. And then the fourth prompt is, you have arrived at the prison and made it inside. After a few roadblocks and challenges, the Silent Spectre is free from the cell, but can you make it out of the mountain? Read a fast-paced book open to interpretation. This one I had no idea for. Absolutely no idea. I think I've been looking at a few other TBR videos who's doing this, and I think Melanie and Cassidy have also put this book on, so I'm gonna just agree, and that is A Tongue So Sweet and Deadly. This is a Kindle book and it is being raved about at the moment. I first saw it on Emmy's channel and I know it's Faye and that's pretty much it. It's not on my radar on my TBR or anything. If it fits the prompt, why not? I think it's got trials in it and that's why it's been deemed as fast paced. I know you can go on Storygraph and Storygraph will tell you the pacing of books, but I feel like the open to interpretation bit means that I can put whatever I want it on. So that is another one, and the final book I'll be looking out for in September. And I guess that's it from me. It's hopefully a bit of a shorter video. I'm currently doing a 24-hour reading challenge and hadn't pre-filmed this, so I'm taking time out of my 24 hours to film. It'll take me time to edit, so hopefully this will be a short, snappy, quick one for you and for me. And now I'm just rambling. Anyway, I guess that's it from me. So I just want to say thank you very much for watching and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Wow, I am getting so warm just talking. And also, can we not agree curly hair is warmer than straight hair? I don't make the rules. I don't know what physics is involved, but that's what happens.